The Holy Gospel according to Matthew chapter 10. Jesus said to the 12, "A disciple is not above the teacher, nor a slave above the master. It is enough for the disciple to be like the teacher, and the slave like the master. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebul, how much more will they malign those of his household? So have no fear of them, for nothing is covered up that will not be uncovered, and nothing secret that will not become known. What I say to you in the dark, tell in the light, and what you hear whispered, proclaim from the housetops. Do not fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. And even the hairs of your head are all counted. So do not be afraid. You are of more value than many sparrows. Everyone, therefore, who acknowledges me before others, I also will acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever denies me before others, I also will deny before my Father in heaven. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and one's foes will be members of one's household. Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And whoever does not take up the cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Those who find their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it." And somehow, some way, this is the gospel, the good news of our Lord. Thanks be to God. Grace and peace to you from God, our Creator, Jesus, our Redeemer, and the Holy Spirit who sustains us. Amen. All right, so this is my last sermon before I go on family leave, and I get to preach all about leaving your family. So that's great, right? So I thought that was kind of ironic when I read the text for this week. There's a lot of hard things in this gospel lesson from Jesus. Just to name a few, Jesus talks about fearing God, but he talks about fearing God after he says 3 times, do not be afraid, right? Do not be afraid of this, do not be afraid of that, do not be afraid of this, but fear God. And then he talks about how he's here not to bring peace, but a sword. And I don't know about you, but that's really hard to hear, especially in a time where our world is in so much war, right? We have the war that Russia has waged on Ukraine. We have wars in Africa and Sudan and Syria. And Jesus says he comes not to bring peace, but a sword. And then another really hard thing that Jesus says here is that if you do not leave your family, if you do not take up the cross, you are not worthy. We're Lutherans. We believe in this thing called grace, that no matter what, we are worthy of God's love and God's grace, and nothing can separate us from the love of God, right? So that's hard to hear as well. And he also kind of contradicts himself even in this same gospel reading, because he says we're not worthy, but before that, one of those do not be afraid statements is, you are of more value than many sparrows. That sounds like being worthy to me. Well, this reading follows the reading that we had last week. If you were here last week, we read from Matthew chapter 9, and it talks about how Jesus was going all over to all the cities and all the towns, and he was preaching, and he was teaching, and he was curing every disease. And then it says that he saw the crowds, and he had compassion for them. He had compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And then instead of Jesus jumping in that moment of his compassion, the gospel tells us that he sends the 12 apostles. And Matthew gives the whole list, the list of the misfits that make up the disciples, starting with Peter, who denies Jesus, ending with Judas, who betrays him. And in between, you've got a tax collector, a zealot, a bunch of fishermen. This is not the cream of the crop, right? But into this crowd that he has compassion for, these are the people who Jesus sends. And so in this text from today, coming on the heels of this, I think it's a text of preparation. Jesus is trying to prepare his disciples to be sent, to be apostles, ones who are sent. He's trying to prepare them that this is not going to be easy, that discipleship is not easy. Discipleship is challenging. It's hard work. It's a calling. If we don't feel called to it, it's not going to work out for us because it's too hard to just do because. It's an uphill battle. It can feel that way sometimes. I mean, think about all the books about discipleship. Think about how much we talk about it. And sometimes we still don't even know what it means to be a disciple, to live this out in our daily lives. What does that really look like? How can we really do it? Also, if it was easy, I think Jesus probably would have had more than 12. But he didn't. So discipleship is a challenge. I think that's part of what Jesus is trying to say here in preparing his disciples. And then he says this that might be the hardest thing to hear in all of it. I've not come to bring peace, but a sword. These words come from the one who many call the Prince of Peace. And I can tell you what I think Jesus means here. I think Jesus is talking here about how it's going to be tough. The sword represents conflict and not taking the easy road. And I think he's talking about the Roman Empire here in the context of Matthew's gospel, where there's a claim to peace, right? The Roman Empire claims the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, that they're living in peace. But we know that wasn't true, especially not for those who were lower class, those who were enslaved, those who were oppressed. Maybe the ones on top experienced some sort of peace, but it was not true peace because there was oppression. There was violence, there was war. And so Jesus is not bringing what Rome brings. He's not going along with the status quo. He's bringing something different, something new to the table. And I think a prophet of our time has said this in a really beautiful way. Martin Luther King Jr. says, true peace is not merely the absence of tension, it's the presence of justice. Maybe you've heard the protest chants, no justice, no peace. You cannot have one without the other. So for Jesus to say that he's not coming to bring peace but a sword, I think he's saying that we can't have peace without justice. Peace is not just the absence of war, because even if there's no war, there could still be inequality. There could still be oppression, and that's not peace. That's not peace. That's not true, deep, abiding peace. Without justice, there cannot be peace. And so part of our calling as these disciples, as these apostles, as the ones who are sent out, is to fight for this justice and this equity that can bring true, abiding peace. And in this same text, Jesus talks about taking up the cross and following him. I think this is what that means. The cross is not the beautiful symbol that we wear around our necks in Matthew's gospel. In this context, it's a symbol of torture. It's a symbol of state-sanctioned murder. It's a symbol of people who are on the margins being killed to be made an example of. People who no one would have cared about, people who no one would have stood up for, they're made an example of and crucified, just as Jesus was. It's the most humiliating way to die at the time. And yet Jesus tells us to take up our cross and follow him. To work to bring equity and justice, to side with those on the margins, those who would have experienced this type of treatment. Martin Luther talks about the theology of the cross. He talks about how without suffering, there's no way to know who Christ is in our midst. Not that we should seek out suffering, but that those who suffer know God best because they see a side of God that was revealed to us in Jesus, in his suffering for us on the cross. To suffer and to be alongside those who suffer is to know God, to see God in a new way. And this is what Jesus is calling his disciples to do, to take up their cross, to walk with those who hurt, to fight for justice, and as a result, to bring peace. And this all has something to do with family for Jesus. Our reading today comes from Matthew chapter 10. 2 chapters later, Jesus is performing some more miracles and healing, and he's in a big crowd, and somebody comes up to him and they tap him on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Jesus, your mom and your brother are here, and they want to talk to you." And Jesus says, "That's great. Tell them to wait a minute." Here, and he points to his disciples, and he says, "Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my sibling and my mother." These people, my disciples, these misfits who will betray me, these are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my sibling and my mother. The disciples are Jesus' chosen family. The disciples are the ones who walk alongside Jesus. The disciples are the ones who are there for them, who do all the things that we talked about in the book, right? At the children's message. The disciples are the ones who share in this will of God with Jesus, in this will to bring this abiding peace that comes through justice, that comes through meeting people on the margins. They're the ones who walk with Jesus in this ministry. They're his chosen family. And I love this because this is the last Sunday of Pride Month in June, and I couldn't help but think about the power of chosen family. As I was reading this text, it talks about the tensions that can come in family. For many in the queer community, family is a source of pain and hurt and rejection. And so a lot of us find chosen family, people who truly love us and accept us unconditionally, people who walk alongside us and our partners for a shared goal of love in the world. It's a really powerful image. And the church at its best can be this. The church at its best can be chosen family. We can be there for one another in difficult times. We can spread the message that we are all created in God's image, that God loves and accepts us all, that we are wonderfully made, that we are beloved, that grace is a free gift and we cannot earn it or lose it. Chosen family is about shared values and shared love. Working towards peace, peace that comes through justice, not a surface level peace. And Jesus talks about peace in Matthew's gospel in the Beatitudes as well. In Matthew chapter 5, he says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. I love this because you notice he doesn't say peacekeepers. He doesn't say conflict avoidant. He doesn't say hate the sinner but not the sin. He doesn't say I love you but I can't accept you. Keeping peace is different than making peace. Making peace goes back to what MLK says about without justice there cannot be peace. Making peace is about creating this deeper abiding, about creating equity, about creating this community. And then he says that those who work to create this, they are the children of God. They are the chosen family, again. Called, named, and claimed as beloved, God's children. I think this is what discipleship is all about. Discipleship is about this creation of peace through justice, this working hard, this uphill battle. It's not easy. We talked about how discipleship is connected to our baptism this week at confirmation camp, at Camp Agape. We talked each day about the 5 baptismal promises that if you are baptized as a baby, your parents make for you. And then when you're confirmed, you affirm for yourself. I know you're not used to seeing a hymnal in this place, but I'd like to read some from the confirmation liturgy for you. And by the way, confirmation in the hymnal is called affirmation of baptism. And what we talked about were these 5 promises with the students. You've made public profession of your faith. Do you intend to continue in the covenant God made with you through holy baptism? To live among God's faithful people, among God's chosen family? To hear the word of God and share in the Lord's Supper? To proclaim the good news of God in Christ through word and through deed, not just word? To serve all people, not some people, all people, following the example of Jesus. And the last one, to strive for justice and peace in all the earth. Justice and peace. You cannot have one without the other. And then the students, if they agree to these, they say, I do, and I ask God to help and guide me. And then we turn to the congregation, to their church family, and we say, people of God, do you promise to support these siblings and pray for them in their life in Christ? And as their church family, we proudly say we do, and we ask God to help and guide us. This is what discipleship is about, living out these promises, struggling together, not alone, together, for this justice and this peace that Jesus calls us to. We don't have to do this alone. It's a family affair, and we are a church family. And this week, as I was preparing, I could not help but think about how grateful I am for this church family. As we prepare to welcome a new member into this family, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And so I'm grateful to all of you for that. And I've been thinking also about how the road to peace for this congregation might get a little rocky. We are going through a transition time right now with a retirement and a call process. We don't know what's coming next. But I trust and I know that as a family, you all will make decisions rooted in justice and in peace and in God's love and in the best interests of one another. And that's all we can really ask for as a church family. And so that's my encouragement to you, as I won't see you much for the next 2.5 months. But just know that keep making decisions rooted in God's love and God's justice, and rooted in lifting one another up as a family. And God will be with you along the way. Amen.